I guess you could call me an entrepreneur, but honestly, that word gets used so much these days, I'm not even sure I could define it. So let's go with this. I'm just a guy who loves building software products in software companies. About 8 years ago, I co-founded a company called Nebraska Global with my partners Steve Keen and Patrick Smith. The idea behind Nebraska Global was to bring together nerds, people like me, and the dollars from our Nebraska-based investors in order to create a technology ecosystem here in Lincoln by building and launching startups. The reason we were doing this is we weren't seeing a lot of momentum in the startup community, and we thought we could use our experience to do something about it. The problem was actually much worse than we realized. At the time, Nebraska ranked 52nd in the country in venture capital activity, which means we were below Washington, D.C. and Puerto Rico. Well, fast forward to today, and the startup landscape in Lincoln has changed dramatically. The amount of energy and motivation and inspiration that I personally get from this is really hard to describe. The fact that this city got behind this idea and really supported it is one of the reasons I love living in Lincoln. Incidentally, Nebraska recently ranked 25th in the country, so we have certainly come a long ways in the last 8 years. Well, Lincoln is a decent-sized city, but I still consider it on the small side. I say that because of its ability to move quickly and to make things happen, something I think is really difficult for larger cities. So this got me thinking. Why can't every small city in this part of the country experience these type of transformational changes? Why can't we democratize startups in Middle America? Well, it turns out if we follow a conventional formula, we will find that the deck is stacked against us. Traditional startups tend to follow a similar path. A few years before Nebraska Global, I co-founded another company with two other individuals. Two of us were living here in Lincoln, and our third partner, Ron, was living in San Francisco. Our big idea was to create software that would automatically provide customized internet content to end users, something we referred to as Google Alerts on steroids. Well, we quickly built a prototype of this product, and Ron leveraged his venture capital network out in Silicon Valley to raise a round of funding and to get us some experienced advisors to help us out. And we worked really hard on that product for a couple of years to find just the right features that would resonate with a broad user base and show our investors that we were really onto something. Unfortunately, we couldn't make a business out of the small but passionate group of users we had, and we eventually had to shut that company down when we ran out of funding. Well, it turns out my traditional startup experience is actually quite common. Depending on how you measure failure, anywhere from 50 to 90% of traditional startups fail. The bottom line is this is a risky business, even if you have access to resources like we did. Unfortunately, there's some additional factors working against us as well. The level of support, venture capital support, in terms of the number of deals funded and the number of dollars invested per capita is not evenly distributed across this country. It's way more grossly weighted in some parts of the country as opposed to others. And this results in almost 10 times the amount of resources available on the coast as opposed to this part of the country. If that wasn't bad enough, we have some social science working against us as well. It turns out that the rate of idea generation and innovation is proportional to population density. In other words, you're going to see a higher rate of innovation in more populated parts of this country. So it seems to me, I think you can see how this is a problem. And it seems to me that following a traditional model for democratizing startups could be a fool's errand. I think we need a different model. Well, rather than accepting these limitations we cannot change, why don't we change our dependency on these limitations? Rather than pretending we can somehow generate more ideas or magically bring in more investor dollars, why don't we do something a little different? why don't we change the equation in other ways? We should leverage the advantages that we have that are a result of being in this part of the country. We actually have a lot going for us. Cities in this part of the country have a strong sense of community, and we're built by people that embody the entrepreneurial spirit that continues today. The fact that we really genuinely depend on one another, and that the reality that a small group of people can have a significant impact means that we can do transformational things. We should take advantage of this and capitalize on this. Back in 2013, we were working with Mike, the CEO of a company here in Lincoln. He was interested in modernizing and evolving their current products and services. They clearly understood their customer needs and had deep market experience, but we sensed that they were a little uncomfortable with the path to follow to do this. They originally felt like acquisition of technology might be the path, and they finally decided that the best approach was for them to somehow build these products and services in-house. I give them a lot of credit for recognizing that not only did they need some technical skills to do this, but they also needed help building the entrepreneurial culture that could bring these ideas to reality. And so they reached out to us. And the model we landed on was a joint venture that brought together the business and sales experience of Mike's company with the product development and startup experience of Nebraska Global. Everyone in this joint venture had skin in the game and would benefit from its success. We even located this company down at our offices so that they could be closer to other startups. Well, this company quickly began testing and validating their ideas and building products and selling them in their market. And things went well, and within 3 years, Mike's company decided to acquire this joint venture back into the parent company. So here's the epiphany we had. At no point during the forming of Nebraska Global did we ever envision going after opportunities like this. But as we got further down the path with this, we recognized that this wasn't some diversion or side trip from our goal of creating startups. This was a startup. It just didn't look like a traditional startup. But everybody involved had equity and skin in the game. And there was risk, but not the same kind of risk you have with a traditional startup that doesn't have customers and doesn't have a ton of market experience. And while we didn't have venture capitalists investing in this, Mike's company certainly put significant resources into this to get this off the ground. We liked this model so much that we changed the way we started looking for opportunities to find more that looked just like this. So let me bring this back to the challenges we face here in Middle America. Cities in this part of the country many of them have industries and companies that have been established and around for quite some time. These companies probably have well-established customer bases and good market experience, and they might even have access to capital like Mike's company had. They're probably also feeling pressure to evolve and innovate to stay relevant in their market. And while they probably very well understand the operations of their current company, they're probably a little uncertain about how to go through a path of innovation. So let me paint this picture for you. Imagine these companies exist in a progressive community that has strong civic leadership, that recognizes the need to bring together these companies with entrepreneurs that have the drive and the energy but lack the big idea and the access to capital. These new joint ventures will create opportunities that will attract people into the city from outside and will inspire young people in the city to stay or return after college. This company will continue to thrive and grow as these new innovations start to gain traction in the marketplace. This new startup model will create and educate the next generation of entrepreneurs that will create the next generation of companies in these cities. That's the picture I want to paint across Middle America. So here's my challenge to you. Think differently about what makes a startup. Think about your community or city. Could you see this happening there? What are those companies in your community that could evolve and innovate in their marketplace? And who are those civic leaders that might be able to bring this vision to reality? And then think about yourself. What are the skills and connections you have that could be leveraged to make this happen? Together, let's reimagine startups in Middle America. Thank you.